You think it's too late to start over with the garden? Everything's been working against me this year. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Redneck video. Again, my name's Chris. If you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. Like I said in the intro, things have been working against me this year. It was so cold early on that I got a late start to getting things in the ground. When I did get things in the ground, it just wouldn't stop raining. It just rained and rained and rained. I've never seen a spring like this or a summer like this. We've got rain 4 or 5 days a week. It just non-stop. See, we'll get like 2 days of sunshine and then rain for 3 or 4 days in a row. It's cloudy and rainy out today. You probably can't see that, but it's been raining today. So as a result of that, I mean, the good is I haven't had to water. I mean, the plants have plenty of water, so everything's getting more than enough water, almost too much, really. The bad thing is that the slugs, it's been not just rainy, but unseasonably cool. So we've been getting nights in the mid 50s, high 50s. So the plants are doing okay, but they're not really growing real well. You know, the heat-loving plants are not really taking off real well. And the slugs have been a huge problem. I've never had a slug problem like this before. It's incredible. They've eaten everything. And if you can see, I'll get the camera down here a little bit low, but I had to start over with almost everything last week because the slugs had eaten everything to the ground. Let me take you around, let me show you some of this damage, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing to control them. Okay, so this is all my okra right here, and you can't really tell. I mean, none of it looks that bad right now because I just planted these last week. They just started coming up. But I had okra that was, you know, that tall already. But what happened was the slugs came through and ate this stuff. Like here's one right here, you can see. Just, get that off there. They just eat the tops off of it. There's just nothing left. There's one more over here that's been damaged, but seems to be doing okay right now. But, you know, for the most part, like my green beans, you can tell, I mean, they've just been chewed up and eaten. A lot of these, there's nothing but nubs left. You know, they ate all the leaves off of it. Like this one right here, ate all the leaves off of it pretty much. There's nothing left. That one right there. So, I mean, my green beans look pretty puny, but there's still plenty of time to get green beans going. My squash plants, that one's all chewed up. It actually is surviving though, so I haven't pulled it out of the ground and started over. I did start over with a couple more up in the front of the garden. But you can tell, I mean, look at this. Leaves just chewed up like crazy. And I've been watching pretty closely. There's no squash bugs or anything on here. Squash bugs don't really do that anyway. This is all slug damage. They got my cucumbers too, so I've had to replant those. I've got a few of them that are left that look like they might make it, but you can tell that one right there, I mean, that's chewed up beyond belief. So what you're seeing on the ground right here, all this around here, is what I'm doing to prevent the slugs, to take care of that. And there's a cucumber plant right there that just got chewed up. There's nothing left of it. Leaves eaten everything. Tomatoes, luckily, tomatoes are doing fine. Slugs don't seem to like the tomatoes as much. They're doing all right. So I've got these up here on a string trellis, those down there in cages like I've always done them. And for the most part, tomatoes are looking pretty good. But everything else has pretty much been just chewed up by slugs and snails. All right, so this is my secret weapon to deal with slugs and snails. It is Slug and Snail Killer. This happens to be Corey's brand. I don't think the brand really matters that much. I've used a couple of different brands. The active ingredient here is sodium ferric EDTA. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it is safe around. It even says people and pets can enter the area immediately, so it's safe to use around all kinds of things. It pretty much just targets just the slugs and the snails. And I only have to break this out whenever I have problems. I have a little bit of a slug problem every year, especially like on our strawberries and things like that. We always have slugs around and snails around, but this year, with as wet as it's been, we've been overrun with them. So I had to really resort to this stuff. And when I started putting this stuff down a couple of weeks ago, the damage almost immediately just kind of stopped. And that's why I went ahead and replanted everything, and I put down a whole bunch more of that. It's supposed to, you know, it says it's best to put down and not water, not irrigate for 48 hours. I can't go 48 hours without rain. That's been the problem I've run into right now, is that we're not going 48 hours without it raining at some point. And that's why we've had such a slug problem. But I've gone ahead and put it down anyway, and it comes out, it's in a pellet form. I got a few of them left in here. Let me show you what they look like. So it looks kind of like a pellet. I don't know if you can see that in my hand, but right now all this stuff on the ground is just kind of turned to mush, but it still works. It still is drawing the slugs in. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of comments on things you can use to deter slugs. You know, I've read about using copper wire, put a ring around your plants, the slugs won't crawl over it. That never works in my experience. I've tried it. It doesn't seem to deter them at all. Also slug traps made with beer basically in a shallow container that they would crawl into and then die. And that does work. It does capture some slugs, but I've been overrun with them. It won't capture them all. This stuff has done a pretty good job of keeping them under control. Basically what they do is they eat that. They're drawn to that, they eat it, and then it makes them feel full, so they don't eat, and then they just crawl off and die, basically. So it's not really like a poison necessarily, it's just, it deters them from eating, they end up dying from lack of nutrition, which sounds horrible, but I gotta do something or I'm not gonna get anything. I mean, they wiped out my entire okra crop, all my squash plants, all my cucumbers, half my green beans, and until I started putting this stuff down. And then the damage started slowing down and stopped. And this stuff lasts for a couple of weeks. So you put it down, it does a pretty good job for a couple of weeks. You put more down, but by that point, hopefully the plants are big enough that it won't be as big of an issue, or I've taken out enough slugs and snails and it won't be that big of an issue. I mean, I've been finding snail shells just laying around on the garden, so I know this stuff's working. I mean, we always see snail shells in the dirt when we dig around, but these are laying on top of the weed fabric, so I know it's working. It's doing a good job of keeping them away. And these have been going for, well, they've been sprouted for about a week, and on all these newly sprouted plants, I don't see a single bit of damage on them. So it's done a good job of keeping them at bay. Let's hope I can just stay on top of it. So, apologize if this is a little bit of a shorter video. I just wanted to show you what I use to keep slugs under control. And let you know too, like I said, I had to start over with everything. We're the first week of June right now, and I started all this stuff last week. So that's 3 weeks behind schedule for me. Usually I'm planting out about Mother's Day, which I did this year as well. It was actually a little bit later than that because it was kind of chilly out still. But, everything got wiped out, so I had to start over again. So we're looking at about 3 weeks behind schedule. That's not that big of a deal, especially for like okra grows pretty quick. My squash, my cucumbers, all that stuff, we've still got time to do plenty of time to get a good harvest out of there. It's not the end of the world. So if you do run into problems, now where you may end up with issues, it would be with like peppers and tomatoes. They take a long time to grow and a long time to start producing fruit. So if you had to start over from seed right now, that's gonna be bad. You may not be able to get it. Now what you could do, of course, is go buy plants from the store, put them in, but even then, we're way behind schedule to get tomatoes and peppers going. Luckily, they're all holding on pretty well. Haven't had a whole lot of damage. A couple of them have gotten a little bit of damage, but not bad. I think they're gonna make it just fine. The peppers particularly, the tomatoes are doing real well. I don't see any damage on the tomatoes. I am experimenting this year with my tomatoes. Half of them in cages, half of them string trellising. So we're gonna see which one I like better. So far, I think I like the string trellising better. Let me take you over and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, so first of all, this is the way I've always grown tomatoes, in cages, and these are not cheap, cages that you buy at your big box store. These are made out of welded fence, basically. Good, sturdy, strong cages. I just drive them into the ground with a T-post, tie them to the T-post. Just one T-post is plenty. And these tomato plants will grow all the way up to the top, out the top of it. These work great. I've always used these, always done a good job with them. The only difficulty with the cages is that it is difficult to get inside here. Like I've got a couple of suckers I need to prune off. It's kind of difficult. You gotta stick your hands through the wire in the cage, get down to it. I mean, it's not that bad right now, but as these things get bigger and get bushier, it's kind of hard to stay on top of and keeping them in the cage, so they go all over the place, and I tend to kind of get pretty lazy with the pruning and keeping them under control. So there's another sucker or two on this one I need to take care of. So it's just not quite as accessible. And if you don't know what I'm talking about by suckers, these are indeterminate tomatoes, which means they will continue to grow and produce until frost kills them off, basically, as opposed to a determinate tomato, which will just grows to a certain size, produces all its fruit, and then dies off. So because they're indeterminates, I do like to kind of prune them a little bit. It keeps them under control. Otherwise, they get incredibly bushy and it's hard to find the tomatoes. Sometimes, depending on what size wire, these are pretty big, so it's not too bad. It can be difficult to get in there and get the tomatoes out sometimes. It's not terrible, but it is slightly less convenient than the string method from what I've seen so far. And let me take you back and show you. I've never done this before. This is the first year doing string method, but so far I'm liking it. We'll see how it holds up when the plants get a lot bigger. Okay, so these are my tomatoes that are on a string trellis. I need to redo this one here. I got this clamped around the wrong spot. But let me show you basically what I got is just a string that's staked into the ground, tied up. I'm just using a zip tie to hold it to that post up there. And then I've got these little clamps right here that these clamp onto the string itself. So you can clamp it anywhere on the string. And it just, whoops, I didn't get it clamped, right? I'm trying to show you. You clamp the string into there, the little nook there, and it will just hold right there. So that's pretty nice. And then the tomato stem will sit in there, so it allows room for it to expand and grow. And you're gonna put these every couple of, I don't know, I haven't figured out exactly how frequently I need to put them on, how many I need for how big the tomato is. Give me a minute here, let me get situated. But basically what's gonna happen, there we go, I got it. Okay, so basically what's gonna happen is as these grow, I'll just be adding more of those. Now I've got these tomato hooks here, I got these off Amazon. Once I get them fully tested and vetted, I'll put them in my Amazon store if I like them a lot, but so far they're really nice. So the theory is as the tomato plant grows, if it grows taller than this, tomatoes are basically just a vine anyway, so what you can do is you just let out more string. You just take this hook off, it's a little tricky. I put them too tight probably. But you just let out more string and you let the tomato sag. Now there would be a whole lot more tomato holding it up. It'd be the bottom portion of it that would be sagging. Hopefully you kind of get the idea on that. But so far I'm liking them. And let me get this tied back up and then I'll tell you kind of what I'm thinking here. What I'm liking about these so far is it's just way easier to get to the plant. It's doing a great job of supporting them. We've had some pretty heavy winds come through. And these tomatoes, they do just fine on this string trellis. It holds them pretty well. Plus it's just easier to get in here and manage the tomato. I don't have to worry about reaching through wire to take care of it or anything like that. It's just, they take up a much smaller footprint. These are gonna be way easier to store than those great big tomato cages. We'll see as the plants get much bigger how well I'm gonna like them, but right now it looks like a winner. I think I may start switching over to this, build some more trellising out here for my tomatoes, probably even my peppers, because usually my peppers get big enough I need to stake them out. I may just go to string trellising them as well. But I guess that's about it on today's video. I'm still dealing with a little bit of a cold, had a cold this week. Didn't get to do a live broadcast. I actually don't feel all that bad right now, but I'm still very congested, so I get worn out pretty easily. So I'm not going to be doing too much probably, well, the rest of the weekend. We're almost done with the weekend anyway. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this little quick garden tour. My peas are doing great. They're producing peas right now, but everything else is way behind, and it's okay. We got plenty of time to get it all done. Seems like, I've said this before, it seems like our seasons are shifting a little bit. We got spring a little bit later than normal, and we tend to be getting, last year anyway, it seemed like we got our fall and our winter a little bit later, so I still got plenty of time to get plenty of production out of the garden, just a little bit behind what I normally am this time of year. So anyway, thanks for joining me today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this quick little garden tour, my solution for dealing with slug infestations, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you, and as always, God bless.